Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here, and today we're going to talk about that age-old question, tell me about yourself in the job interview. Now, this question is vague and it's very open-ended, and there's a specific reason why it's like that. Now, interviewers love this question and they love to ask it, and they know exactly what they're looking for when they ask this question. So, the more you're prepared with a very specific answer, the better off you'll be and the more likely you'll be to make it to the next interview or even get an offer. Okay, so let's get started. Now, in a question like this, tell me about yourself, it's vague on purpose. So the reason the question is open-ended and vague is because they're trying to draw out from you exactly where you feel you're going to fill a void at the company or in that position. And the more specific you are with how you tie in all of your job experience in a nice, neat bow into the answer of that question, is going to be a very strong indicator of whether you'll get asked back or even given an offer. Now, here's how it works. Job interviewers already have your resume. They probably have already looked at your LinkedIn profile, and they've probably poked around at some of your social media accounts to get a general idea of who you are. They've already figured out how you're communicating, what kind of information you're sharing, and how you shaped yourself on social media, particularly on LinkedIn, versus the resume that you've actually shared with them that they're looking at right now. So they know information about you, which makes the power of this question, tell me about yourself, all that more fascinating, actually. So when you go to answer this question, it's very important that you connect this experience that you have in your background and the fact that you're sitting in front of them. They called you in for an interview, so they've looked at all of your accounts and all of your information. They said, sure, we'll sit down and we'll talk to this person. And then connect that opportunity with, what's it going to look like when I finally get hired here? And you want to take that vision, that possibility, wrap it in a nice, neat bow, tell a pretty interesting story, and give them that narrative to bridge this gap. So how does that look? So I was interviewing for a job, and this was a very long time ago. I did end up getting the job. And it's always my favorite story, mostly because I had gone out on a big interviewing campaign. I had sent out tons of resumes. I was trying to get into any number of companies, and I had split the companies up into three categories. One, easy pickings, something that I figured I could easily get hired at, or it would be an easy job to do. The second one was your sweet spot, those jobs that probably were best suited for me. I could grow and learn, and they were good opportunities. And there was a third group, those outlier companies that I had a very slim chance of getting hired. However, I was going to put my resume out there just in case I got the experience to do the interview. And one of those companies wrote me back and said, yeah, we'd like to talk to you. So from the minute they started asking me to come in for interviews, I thought, this is an outlier company, which means I probably will not get hired, but I will go. I'll get my experience. I will answer the questions and practice, and I'll learn about this company and their interview process. Okay, so I went in there. I interviewed there 3 or 4 times before they hired me. And so one of the first interviews was with an HR representative who told me, we have your resume and this is why we decided to bring you in and how much alignment do we have. They explained everything about the company, and then I left. And I came back for another interview with a person who eventually was going to be my supervisor. And he had a piece of paper with a list of software applications. And he said, I'm just going to go through this list and ask you, which of these applications do you know? Which of this software are you already familiar with? And he had about 15 applications, software applications on the list. And he went through each one. And he said, do you know this one? I said, no. He said, do you know this one? And I said, no. And he said, how about any of these? And I said, no. And he tick marked each one of them. No, I don't know it. I don't know. And these questions weren't even related to how well do you know Microsoft. This was about very specific applications that you would use for, I don't know, any other kind of things that were very specific, and I didn't know them. So I went home and I thought, that was that. I don't think I got that job. I figured that was the end of it because it was an outlier company. I didn't think I had any shot at getting in. And they called me back. And so I went back and I was upset and I was worried. I had already explained to them I didn't know any of the software, and for me, I was the job candidate. I could not understand where they saw value in me if I didn't know all of that software already. So when I went in there, I said, I see that you have my resume and was just curious why you called me in for an interview. And the person I spoke with said, I'm the one who put your resume forward because you have a diverse background. You've worked at a number of different companies, and we like that. You've moved around a little bit. And I said, but I don't know any of that software. And he replied, you're not supposed to know all of that software. We're going to teach you the software. And he said, what they really needed was somebody who was a blank slate. And from that, I went to a full day interview. And when they asked me, tell me about yourself, this is how I answered. I had experience at other companies. I had gone to one company and they were just converting their computer system to a new system. And they said to me, we don't have anybody else who can do this. Can you learn it and then teach the rest of us how to do this? And I said, yes. And then I went to another company, completely different, and they also were converting all of their computer systems. And I happened to say, I have experience from a previous job. I might like to volunteer for this one. And they said, sure. And I learned everything about it and helped them with their launch. And now interviewing at this bigger company, much, much bigger company, I was able to tell them when they asked me, tell me about yourself, I explained, I tend to have an interest in new technology. And I have an ability or a knack of being able to share what I learned, which is being able to teach and communicate in terms where someone else can learn or absorb that information and then use it. That wasn't in my resume. What was in my resume were all of my jobs and the job responsibilities that I had. These were additional extracurricular activities that happened to be something that I enjoyed doing that I actually didn't think would add value. But when it came to the tell me about yourself question, I decided to weave it in as why I would be best suited for a job where I did not know any of the software. And the diversity in my background was really a polite way of saying, looks like you bounced around quite a bit, which was true. I was in my 20s and I bounced around a few jobs. But the narrative that I found, and that's the second point, is the narrative that I've created is what my experiences were at those companies was leading up to how I was going to add value to that company that I was interviewing for. And then I wanted to set myself apart. Why would I, as a candidate, be important for you as a company that wants to hire someone? So this was about, first of all, paying very close attention to what they were telling me when I was doing these interviews and pivoting the way I answered or responded in light of information that they gave me. So I wouldn't say that I was prepared to answer the question, tell me about yourself, because I probably had some rehearsed, very generic answer. But what I did learn was I didn't know any of that software. They liked the diversity of my experience. And what I really wanted from them was I may not know that software right now, but based on my previous experiences in the diversity of the background, you'll see that the theme, the value that I added to these other companies was that not only was I willing to learn something new, but I was also willing to share it for the benefit of others. And that job interview was for a technical support position where I provided troubleshooting and I needed to learn code. I needed to understand the back end of computer systems and then be able to provide solutions for people who couldn't figure out how to use their computers for a very major corporation. So I ended up getting that job. I believe that they saw past how I showed up in the interviews because I could get nervous, but I believe that they saw potential. And that's the point of this whole video. They're looking for your potential. They're not looking for you to already know the stuff that they're asking you. They want to know the potential for you to learn what they're asking you and then go beyond that. And then they're asking you, when they say, tell me about yourself, they want you to show this narrative and then they want you to prove how you add value or why you would even matter to them or how you fill that space. How are you going to not just fill in the space, but how are you going to expand? And what are you going to give back? Pay attention to how they're asking these questions. Pay attention to the position that you're interviewing for, and pay attention to the narrative that you're creating. Those nuggets that are beyond what's in your LinkedIn profile or what's beyond your resume, and that theme, that narrative that you can weave in that connects each of your job positions one to the next until you've gotten to this space where you're interviewing for this job. And then you're telling them, my narrative is showing that I'm leading up to this space all along. Now, this is just the next natural step. This is where I belong. So that's it for this video on how to answer the question, tell me about yourself. And Augie's leaving. Please make sure to click the like button, click the follow button, and click the subscribe button. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.